But we are recording and we're here. Oh, I have a story to tell. This is a great story that I can share, and it'll be a great intro because I'm not one to use intros for my podcast. But so I have a public story. And for those that don't live in Florida or anywhere where there's a Publix franchise, then it'll be a Walmart story for most of you guys. So I went to Publix yesterday. No, not yesterday. Monday? Yeah, Monday. And you know how there's a Publix app, right? And when you use the Publix app, I mainly use it for the deli because I like my Publix subs. You know, or you already know what time it is with the Publix sub.
Which Publix sub?
I like the chicken tender.
Of course.
Every
guy's favorite.
And I try to stay away from bread right now. So I'm like off this bread thing. So I get the tender on a spinach wrap, right? So I go on the app and I'm doing whatever the app tells me to do, like build your sub, but I'm building my wrap. And I specifically put that I didn't want mayo. So I clicked the mayo button on the freaking app, right? And I put the Chipotle mayo. You guys ever heard of that? Okay. So I made sure that there was no mayo and I had the Chipotle sauce on there, right? So I go pick it up. Fine gentleman takes care of me, younger dude takes care of me, great guy, took care of me. And he actually tried to engage in conversation. So he was a bit of an extrovert, and I thrive in that because I'm an extrovert naturally. So we're talking, chopping it up, and he gives me the wrap. It's not until when I get home, and mind you, I'm hungry.
Oh, no.
And I take that first bite, bro, and can you guess what happened?
Is there a worse feeling in life than when you're about to take a bite of something that you so wanted?
Yeah.
And you're like thinking about it, and you can't wait to get that bite, and then you bite it, and you're like, fudge.
Yeah.
It's not. Damn it! They put pickles in it.
It's like, what the crap, man? What the crap? And I didn't say crap. I was saying explicitives. So people pray for me because I'm still cussing out here in these streets, man. And that's one thing that I'm trying to do as a Christian man too. Like we'll talk about that later, but cussing, bro. And I think it's a cultural thing because I was raised in New York. And in New York, the F-bomb is something that you say out of passion, bro. It's not necessarily that you're trying to dunk on people and cuss on people. It says you just say things out of passion. Like when you go to Vinny's Pizzeria and you're like, hey, that effing pizza, forget about it. It's good. It's effing good. But, anyway, I digress. So I take the first bite, and of course I'm F-bombing. But then Jesus somehow brings me in the center, right? And he's like, and I just feel God telling me, hey, but you had a great conversation with that young man, right? And he was gracious with you, and he showed grace, and he served you, essentially. And I'm like, oh God, I hate when you do this to me. I'm like, man, no, I was like, God, you're right. So I ultimately ate my wrap, but it's just those first world problems, You live in America and you find yourself complaining about silly things like mayo instead of Chipotle sauce on your chicken tender wrap. But that's my story, and a lot of it was conviction because God kind of spoke to me and said, "How often do you show grace and empathy to certain people that are hard to communicate with or even hard to love?" And I'm just like, man, I got to be more mindful of that, because if I'm going to live a life of a Christian man, a lot of people that know that you're trying to live this Christian quote unquote life, they kind of want to look at your life in this big magnifying glass, and
right,
almost
like you're supposed to be perfect.
Yeah, like you're supposed to be perfect, and like it feels like they're waiting for you to screw up so they can go, aha, you're a hypocrite.
Yeah.
But it's like, bro, if we really want to peel back the layers of that conversation, like we all we are all hypocrites. Like we have to live in our hypocrisy, because one day we can say we love this and we do this and we do that, but you're not going to be maybe liking doing that and doing this a year from now.
Oh,
so,
to me it happens daily and multiple times
right.
in the day where I'm like, ooh.
So technically that by definition, that's a hypocrite.
Yeah, absolutely.
But a lot of people feel that a hypocrite is such a derogatory term, and you feel offended. And a lot of us Christian people get offended way too easily. And I push back on that, because I used to be like that. And I still struggle with offense. I still get offended here. I still feel offended here and there. But I remember listening to a sermon by, I don't know if it was Stephen Furtick or Richard Wilkerson, where he said, I bet you're offended. And I bet you feel that you're offended. But remember, Jesus was taking the biggest offense for you, and he just didn't wake up one day and say, hey, I can't wait to go hang on a cross for you. You know, he was offended, and he took the biggest offense to save our souls. And when he shared that perspective, I'm like, dang, like, who am I to judge, and who am I to feel offended all the time?
Yeah.
Like, we have to cut people some slack too. People aren't perfect, because the same grace that I expect people to have for me, I should be extending that same grace back. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And also sometimes I feel like when you take offense to things, it's a lot because you are embracing those people's ideology, perspectives of you, when in reality, it doesn't really matter. Like, you know, I don't want to sound mean, because I always struggle with wording things because I'm very blunt, right? And people are in sensitivity or where they get easily offended. So sometimes they can think like, wow, that's so harsh, or that's so, you know, and I'm like that, but that's the truth though. Like, why do I care what you think of me? Or why do I care what you said of me?
Right.
Like, at the end of the day, at least for me, something that I've really focused on is really just caring about what does the immediate people that I love really think about me. Like, to me, that's super important. What does my son, my partner think about me? Everything else, it's like, you know, it's passing day. If I do if I do something nice for you, you're gonna think I'm amazing. If I reject you, you're gonna think I'm a jerk.
Right.
Can we curse?
No.
Okay. Because I'm a really big potty mouth. When you were saying that, I was like, oh God, no, not me. So I have to be careful.
I would let like certain, like the F-bombs, definitely no, because YouTube demonetizes you when
that's good to know.
When you F-bomb a lot. But like shit and damn, I'll let that slide.
Okay, good. Because I'm Colombian, so you got to kind of warn me about that. Yes,
I'm from New York. I'm Colombian, so I got a double whammy. Yeah. You know, so people pray for me. Pray for me, because I'm trying to clean up my...
For both of us.
Pray for me, because I'm trying to clean up my language here. But yes, absolutely. I think that because of the Western culture, because of we live in America, we kind of walk around with this entitlement, and, you know, we worry about what people think of us, especially when you're engaged in the social media market. You're putting yourself out there. So you spoke about it offline, and you were saying, hey, I'm an introvert, but I like to go on social media because it gives me an opportunity to be quote unquote social. Right. Because you're literally not physically in front of an audience, although once you hit send on that video and post it, there's going to be some eyes on it, but you have that security blanket that the eyes are not live eyes, quote unquote, that are looking at you, judging you, and critiquing you as to how you are articulating a certain point or dancing, because I love your dance videos, by the way.
Thank you. I take pride in those.
Yes. So yeah, we live in a culture where a lot of people do care what they think about you.
Absolutely.
You know, because it's all about clicks and likes and comments, right?
Right. And especially depending on your job and like what you do for a living, it could be very necessary for people to, but I think you have to dance that line. Like, okay, we all care about an image, right? So like my image is health, wellness, right? Those things are important to me, family, parenting, mindset. So that's how I present myself to the world, because that's the ideology that I have of myself. But But if someone sees me in the street, right, and they're like, oh, well, she works all this out and maybe she's not as fit, like that is on them. That's not on me. And I think that's where we have to find the fine line. Because you see, I started a fitness Instagram, and for years I didn't do it. Because for years I struggled with the idea of not being in, like, not what people were going to say so much, so that more than like, is it really worth it? Like, what am I really contributing? Like, is it vain?
Yeah.
So I was very hard on myself because see, I feel like that makes it easier for me with people because you can't possibly be harder on me than I am on myself. You see what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't, nothing you can say can be worse than what I can say to myself in a bad moment, in a bad mental health day, or when I'm struggling with what I'm doing as a human being. Am I a good person? Am I a good mom? So it's like, but it's a hard balance, especially when you got all kinds of people in your peripheral, like constantly giving you some kind of comment
in your space
or something, right?
Because a lot of people are in your space.
Yes.
And when you allow it in your space is where it kind of gets a little toxic.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people struggle with that. You know, people get depressed because of bullying online. I've heard stories, you know, of people getting bullied online, and so they get depressed and they turn into a vice, whether it be drugs, whether it be promiscuity, and they just start living promiscuous lives because they don't find value in themselves, so they find value in other people, and then people take advantage of them, and now you're caught up in this lifestyle that's very treacherous and toxic for you. And so I get it. I totally get it. And it's tough. It really is tough because even like navigating, and we're going to talk about this once we start talking about the topics that we would like to talk about. But before we do, actually, because this is somewhat of an intro, because I don't really have intros, as many of my regulars know that I like to start the pod by just speaking and having dialogue. I am blessed today with the presence of an old friend of mine. And I'm going to give her an opportunity to introduce herself. But she is blessing the mic today, guys. Her name is Lala, but I'll give her an opportunity to introduce herself. I think this is episode 57, I think. Wow, that's awesome. 57. So episode 57, Lala is in the building, in the shop, and we're going to talk about a little bit of everything. I think me and her share a lot of common interests when it comes to life. You know, life is a huge school of hard knocks, right? We live and we learn and we try to be better as young adults in this game called life, right? And, you know, we follow each other on social media, so I do see you post a lot of your content, and some of it is encouraging. Your posts are very encouraging. You post a lot of encouraging, inspirational things, so I really do appreciate that.
Thank you.
So you're very centered with yourself.
I try.
You try. No one's perfect. We're all flawed, and we're saved by grace.
Amen. I like that. That's a good one. Yeah.
We're saved by grace, and God only knows why we're in certain rooms and in certain spaces. So it's cool to have a conversation with Lala today. But before we do, let's just have an opportunity for you to introduce yourself to the world, to a little bit of viewers that I have and listeners that I have, that you know, anything that you want to share, as far as who you are, what you do, and things like that.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I really
Hopefully it won't be your first time.
Thank you.
Chris has done like, what, 5 already?
Yeah.
Chris is...
You know, this is a good exercise for me because I do... So I'm Lala, okay?
Yes, Lala.
Yes, I'm a mom. I am a strong, independent woman.
To a 16-year-old,
Yes.
kids. To a 16-year-old.
Yes.
Can you believe that?
He's the most perfect, beautiful soul in the world. But yes. But I do sales for a living. So I am required to constantly be with people.
In front of people.
I build relationships for a living. So it's good for me to expose myself in a public setting where people are going to hear my voice, and I don't know. I guess it's like the same concept as Instagram, but it feels different.
Yeah, because you don't know how your perspective and your voice is going to be accepted by the masses.
Yeah. So I guess if you know me, I always say my beautiful souls. I guess that might be my my best introduction. Like, I'm ready for whatever you want to talk about. I'm
Cool.
open.
Cool.
I love to talk about the importance of our children, like all that, all those subjects. I love it. Thank you for
Now, for
having me.
those that don't know you, what's your origin story, real quick? Your origin story, if you had to put it in a paragraph.
So, I'm Colombian.
There you go. Boom! I was waiting for that
Colombian.
one. Let's go.
And I'm a Scorpio, baby.
Hey.
But
Do I have blowhorns now? I think I have blowhorns here. I'm gonna just go.
dude, like blowhorn.
Hey, Colombia in the house.
But I have a sister. Actually, I have 3 sisters. 2 from my dad's side.
I know
and
one of them.
Yes.
Melly, shouts to Melly. What up, girl?
Yes, my Melly. But you know, I grew up in New York. I've been here since '98.
That gets a clue bomb.
Thank you. I agree. We are unique, aren't we?
Flex bomb. That's a flex bomb right there for those who are in New York.
Yes.
Funkmaster Flex and Hot 97. I used to listen to that guy on the way back to school and from school, depending on the shift that he would work. But anyway, I'm sorry.
No, do you miss I was telling my son.
I miss Hot 97, yes.
Yes, but
I miss
and
Hot
I was
97.
telling my son the other day, like, dude, do you understand I had to buy CDs and like skip through certain parts of the song to be able to get, I'm like, now you just have Apple.
Yeah.
I'm like, and your world is so easy, literally. Do you know what it's like? And then, you know,
And some of these albums had dope interludes.
Yes.
Remember the interlude?
Yes. But can we, there was no worse feeling than buying an album for like $15.99 is what I remember them being back then. And it had one good song, but that song was so good that you're
fire.
like, F it, I gotta buy it. I gotta get it.
Yeah.
I need it.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
So you're from New York, you're
Yes.
Colombian.
I'm a mom.
You're a mom.
I said that. I'm
to
really...
a teenage boy.
Yes.
His name is?
Joel.
Joel. Shouts to Joel. 16 years, young.
I said his nickname, he would kill me.
Out here. So what makes Lala Lala?
Oh my gosh, that's a loaded question. So many things.
If you have to choose a couple things.
I think humor. I'm very humorous, very hardworking. So I'm very dedicated and committed. I'm very passionate, you know, like about the things that I love. Like I'm super, super passionate. And I love to have the opportunity to build a relationship and inspire someone to do things. So that's like those kind of things. Living present, right? Enjoying the moment, learning, growing. Like I'm so complex. Like it's crazy. It's hard to describe yourself because you have so many like different levels of yourself.
Different layers.
You know?
I like asking that question because you get a loaded answer because it is a loaded question. So I love asking those questions. I'm going to ask one more question and we're going to dive into the conversation because I can't wait to have convo. If you were to see your younger self, what advice would you give your younger self?
That's another very loaded. I mean, that's like FedEx loaded. Oh gosh. You know, overall, I would just tell myself, like, trust your gut. You'll figure it out. Everything always works out. You know, no matter what decisions I make, there's going to be good and bad moments. So just enjoy it for what it is and learn from it.
Yeah.
You know, like I think that's the biggest thing is learning from all those decisions that we make in life.
Yes. Awesome answer. I love that answer. And because you're from New York and you grew up around hip hop, you know, I got to ask you a hip hop question.
Is this going to warrant a debate?
It's going to definitely warrant a debate. Ready? You ready for this?
Yes.
Because it's Brooklyn or Queens, but when we talk about Brooklyn and Queens, we do talk about the late great Biggie. So Biggie's in a totally different stratosphere. Like he's the king of New York. So Biggie is out of this debate because it's Biggie. Like there's no like arguing that Biggie is the king of New York, right? However, we do got other kings in New York that paved the way after his death. And that goes without hesitation, Jay-Z or Nas.
Nas. The Illmatic, always.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a different, it's spiritual.
I love it.
It's spiritual.
I love it.
I've had this conversation with my son. And
Yeah.
for me, like, even, I know this is gonna, I don't know, it might spike something in you, but to me, Nas is even superior than, they're different types of lyricists, but I feel like, to me, Nas is the ultimate lyricist I've ever heard.
Yeah,
the way he just flows,
he's still relevant to this day. He actually just dropped an album not too long ago.
and he was sexy back in the 90s. That man was good
He
looking.
kept the tight Caesar haircut.
Yes.
With the bevel.
With his Tims, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Nas. Here's my thing with Nas and Jay. So when Biggie died, I was relatively still young, but I was already entrenched in hip hop. And when Biggie died, I'm just like, man, like I got robbed from greatness, because he was well on his way to being great times infinity, right? But then when Biggie left, there was a void in hip hop, and people tried to carry the mantle, and Jay was one of them. And being that Jay-Z was from Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, not too far from where Biggie was, because Biggie rapped in Brooklyn as well. Like, I love Nas because classic album, Illmatic. Classic album. There's no other album like Illmatic, like production-wise, because we're talking about DJ Premier, Lord Finesse, Havoc from Mobb Deep, all these producers. It was like a super producer produced album. Like, he had all the producers who is a producer at the time produce that album. That's why that album is a classic. Not to say that Jay-Z's Reasonable Doubt isn't a classic, but Jay spoke to the masses, whereas Nas did that, but he spoke to the quote-unquote woke people.
More underground too. I think it was like, although Jay-Z's a fun vibe, like
Jay-Z.
Fun story, my first song that I ever learned how to rap was Can I Get Up?
Oh my God,
I mean, to this day, it's I love embarrassing my kid. It's my favorite thing to do.
That's your superpower?
Yes, like I'm like, anytime that I get to have him look at me like, why are you this way? I'm like, I've done it. And every time I'm like, he's like, oh, he talks about Lil Baby or something like that, a rapper that's going on right now.
He's like this generation's Lil Wayne. Yeah. So I get it.
And I always tell him, I'm like, that's nothing. And I put my song on my car and I start rapping, and he's like, why? Why are you this way? And I'm just like, you don't even know good music.
Seriously.
Like, you really don't.
I had stages though. Like, okay, so early on, Nas was my guy because he was my spirit animal. Like, he spoke like real. He was a great storyteller. So when I hear people's stories, what I tend to do when I'm hearing your stories, for example, you're telling me a story, I paint it in my head. So I'm painting these visions in my head. So I see it in my head. I'm seeing like this theatrical picture in my head. So when I'm listening to, for example, Chris is here. He's in the building. Shouts to Chris. What's up, Chris? When Chris is telling me a story, and it's like a story about an experience that he had growing up in El Barrio in Puerto Rico, right? I'm already painting that picture in my head. I'm painting the color. I see the colors. I see El Barrio. I see maybe a dead end street somewhere, and then I see Chris running around in the hood in Puerto Rico.
Cool that you could do
so
that.
so I paint that picture theatrically in my head. So as you're telling me this, I'm visualizing it. So with Nas, you know how Nas be spitting.
Yes.
Nas like will tell a story, and it's so vivid in my head. As for versus Jay-Z would, like you said, he was more of a vibe. He was more of a, hey, I'm this drug dealer trying to get off these streets. I'm trying to make a billy. Here's who I am. Cars, women, everything that will attract a young teenage boy like myself. So that was very attractive to absolutely. A young Javi, like a young 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old Javi gravitated to that because it's like, yo, my man's driving and he's whipping on the Benz. He got the girls. He got the lifestyle. So he's, essentially preaching this lifestyle to you.
Right.
Versus Nas, he just told you a story like, yo, here's where I came up. I'm still the same dude. I may have money, but I'm out here with my army fatigues and my Timbs.
Nas is like Tupac, and Biggie is like Jay-Z,
Correct.
in my opinion. Like,
yes.
Tupac was very big into life-telling, storytelling, versus, you know, Biggie was flashy.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta thank Diddy for that.
Yeah,
You know,
for sure. Diddy was definitely heavily influenced by Puff. But yeah, that was definitely cool to grow up in, and so I just figured because you're from New York and I know that you're somewhat of a hip hop head. I always ask that question because a lot of people will tell you different answers. Some people are heavy on Jay, other people are very heavy on Nas. I teetered in the middle only because I like Nas's storytelling capabilities and abilities, and I like Jay because it was more lifestyle. Like, wow, I wish I was in that Benz with that girl spending that money.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's very interesting. But yeah, so we are episode 57. As you know, I'm here with Lala, and we're going to talk about a little bit about mental health, parenting, dating, what it's like to be dating now in this social media era. But we're going to start with parenting, because that's something that I've been introduced to abruptly because of my brother's situation, and now I'm like a surrogate father, as I was telling you earlier, to these beautiful kids. Chris met them, Aria and Connor, 8-year-old and 4-year-old.
Wow.
So they're a handful.
Yeah.
I see them once or twice during the week, and I'm seeing them almost every weekend. And they're a handful, man. But I look at the world that I'm living in, right? And so I'm analyzing the world that I'm living in, and I'm like, wow, like, this is the world that we're living in, and this is the world that's going to impact my kids.
Right.
And I know that you have a teenage boy. So how is it like to navigate through the hard questions and the hard things that we see on social media? You know, this society gets pretty divisive sometimes because so many people are too political. Some people are anti-political. Other people are in the middle. Other people are far right. Or people are far left. Conservatives will say one thing and liberals will say another, and how to raise your kids. And you have all these things as a parent in your face, like how to raise your kid. How do you navigate through, okay, well, culture is going to be culture, but this is what's happening in my household?
I don't allow culture or exterior to at all influence my parenting, because for me, see, the responsibility that I have to Joel is that regardless of the situations that are going outside of me that are out of my control, the only thing that I can control is what I teach my son. Like, what values do I follow? What do I believe in? What do I think is important? And I try to be very understanding that I am biased to certain things. So I like to empower him to have an opinion and build his own character and be able to problem solve and thought solve. Like, you know, like go through those thought motions and decide, like, if they're giving you this version, right? And if you hear this other version, you have a choice within what you want to believe. Maybe you don't want to believe none of it. Mm-hmm. So I try to be very open and communicative with him. Yeah. Thankfully, I have a great relationship with him. So the hard questions are not really hard, because, you know, I think for me, the culture, right, Colombian, a lot of conversations were very stigmatized. Like, absolutely, we don't talk about sex, we don't talk about money, we don't talk about all these
and God
things.
forbid you're talking about homosexuality,
yes,
or sexual orientation.
We don't, like, we just, you know, and at least I was raised with the ideology of, you're just a kid, so you don't, like, you just do what I say, and then they throw you out to be an adult, and it's like, oh dang, I don't know what to do. Like, how do I make a decision? You made them all for me. Yeah. Right? So culturally, I've always been the kind of person that I beat to my own drum. I'm very strong-minded since I've been a little girl. Like, my mom's like, the first time I ran away from home, I was 3. Wow. Yeah. So luckily for me, that personality has served me in the sense of, it doesn't matter what anyone says. Like, This is what I'm, what I believe in. And I always tell Joel, you don't have to agree with what I'm telling you. You have to follow certain rules and normalities because you live in my house until you're an adult. But once you're an adult, you can take all the information I gave you and you can make your own decision, because maybe he does see things differently, and I think that they're also, the sensitivity that's coming with that generation is a good thing, but anything too much of it is bad, and that's the problem. Like, it's really teaching children how to be balanced, and not balanced in the way that everything's perfection and everything is evened out. Balance in the way that you're gonna have bad days, but understand that good days come too. That you're gonna make the right decisions, but you're also gonna make the wrong decisions. Like, all those things are an equilibrium. So I try to tell my son that, and I'm young. Well, I believe that I'm young. My son thinks I'm a dinosaur, but
you're young. Old is when you're 90.
But I always like to have open conversations, and I don't stigmatize them. I'm like, let's talk about sex. Like, let's talk about, I know you like girls right now, and I know that, feelings are going on, and I tell him, I'm like, sex is a beautiful thing between two people that are fully committed to each other in a relationship and love each other. And when you're ready mentally to understand the repercussions of your actions, then maybe you're ready for that step. So I think it's just like taking away the idea that it is a taboo subject, like it was taught to me. Like, you don't talk about that,
I think also it's instilling a moral compass,
right?
And stuff like that. I think that's very important to have, like, at least that baseline. Like, the baseline is, hey, morality,
right,
and this is what our morals and codes and ethics are, and this is non-negotiable as long as you're under my roof, kind of thing. But also have that opportunity to embrace dialogue, because you and I share the same culture. We're both Colombian, from a Colombian family, and a lot of it was stigmatized. It was very, like, our parents weren't equipped because of the generation they came from.
Right.
So they only worked with what they were given.
Right.
So a lot of that was, they were walking around on eggshells, because it was like they didn't have comfortable conversations with their parents, which is our grandparents, right? So it was definitely stigmatized, and when it came to the Christian background, like, oh, well, the Bible says you shouldn't have sex before marriage. So purity culture came out of that. And what happens was the purity culture movement in the Christian community stigmatized it even more, times a million. So what happened was, you gave sex such a bad taste in their mouths that they were fearful of having those conversations. So they didn't know how to have those conversations. So naturally, because you are a rebel, like, you're gonna rebel.
You're a teenager.
You're gonna rebel.
Yeah.
And because you weren't having those conversations, you're gonna go do it on your own. And so you have all these teenagers having sex and babies having babies, in a sense. And it's like, you feel like you are, that you failed. Some people feel, or some parents, from my experience and having conversations with parents, with young parents, with teenage sons or daughters, like such as yourself, sometimes they felt like they failed as a parent, because here, your son or daughter is 17, 16, and they're pregnant, or their girlfriend's pregnant. So you do feel like you failed them. Yeah. But
we take ownership of things that aren't ours to take
correct.
Ownership of.
Yeah.
I think opening communication is very important, but when you open communications, you have to be aware that there's gonna be kickback, that there's gonna be opinions that maybe you don't agree and align with, and I grew up in a very, as long as you're under my roof, you're gonna do what I say, until it was like, okay, well, now then I'm leaving your roof, because I don't like what you're saying, and you give me no opportunity for me to communicate with you. So for me, that was a very big lesson to learn, is like, more so than judging my son's decisions or stupid stuff he's going to do, because he's a human and we are all mistakes, I try to look at him from a graceful point of, And I'm very transparent with him. I'm learning. Okay, I've never been a mom before. This is my one and only opportunity. I'm like, I'm giving it the best that I have at this moment. Some days I show up great, some days I don't. But I tell Joey, like, I'm not perfect. I don't know what the answer is.
Right.
I'm giving you my experience, what I've been taught, and I want you to make the best decision for yourself. Because you see, sometimes we set like expectations on other people of how they should behave, right? Like, you can't have sex. The Bible says, right? Like, God doesn't agree with that.
Right.
Okay. But then when that person who is human and is weak or is a child,
right,
like, that's the thing. Like, understand who you're talking to. You're talking to children.
Yeah.
And these children they're raging through freaking crazy emotions. Like, think about when you
And
were
hormones.
a teenager. Let me tell you, my kid is nothing compared to what I was. Like,
Right.
I love him. He's a great kid.
Yeah,
So for me, it's like, yes, I can set this expectation, right? But never with the ideology of like, that's what it's going to be.
Right.
Because I don't control that.
Yeah.
And then when we take ownership for their mistakes, it's like, but it's not yours. You see, and you don't fail them because everything's a learning experience. I guess my mom could have looked at, she failed me because I was pregnant at 19. But, you know, do I recommend it? No, right? Because there was a lot of challenges, but had I been a failure, or, you know, or my mom failed me, like, I wouldn't have the son that I have, the relationship, the growth that being a parent has allowed. It's forced me into. Like, I'm forced to grow because I have this person that I have to take care of. Like,
right.
I have to figure myself out so that I can try to help him navigate his life, so that we're not in this constant generational pass down of craziness and trauma and ideologies that don't serve us.
Right,
like,
because it
they
becomes
really
toxic.
don't. Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
And you try to live up to this expectation, and it's like these kids are already trying to live up to millions of expectations from social media, right? So I try to enforce my son into like, honey, these people don't know you.
Yeah.
Okay? They don't really know who you are. God knows who you are.
Right.
And if you act from a good place, if you do the right thing,
Yeah.
you're still going to make mistakes, but God is going to help you work through them because he knows you're coming from a good place, right?
Yep.
But if I'm the first one judging, like, where does, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think we have to really understand that we can't parent how we were parented because we're living in a whole
different generation.
world.
Yeah, whole different world. The world looks different.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you touched on it with social media. We live in a heavy, I think more than ever, in a heavy influenced social media era.
Yeah.
I mean, like everything. So like social media influences everything that we do. I feel like what we buy, what we wear, what we listen to, what we watch, what shows we're gonna watch. Everything has a social media platform.
But how cool is that? Wait.
It is cool.
It is.
I'm not trying
like,
to.
How much do we learn on social
we
media?
Do.
Like,
we do.
TikTok has taught me some stuff.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
YouTube's taught me some stuff.
Yeah,
I've
geez.
how many? I can't even count the countless tutorials that I've looked at on YouTube. And I don't want to take the position where I'm like this anti-social media guy, because guys, I have a platform and I put content on social media. I love social media.
Yeah.
Social media is giving me a voice, and it's giving me a platform for me to reach people that it's literally far from my sphere, from my proximity. Like the other day, I had a random dude just DM me from I think from Kansas City. And he was
so cool
he was like, bro, the last episode, it really resonated. Thank you for sharing. And I'm just like, dude, from all the way in Kansas City, that's crazy. You know what I mean? But you know, at the same time, the world, the culture, I feel like in certain pockets of society and culture, it's definitely weaponized to hypersexualize a lot of things that
100%.
that kids have no business looking at.
100%.
You know what I'm saying? And so it's hard. It makes parenting that much challenging. But not even parenting. But let's talk about like the way you and I, you know, engage. like the way, especially with the opposite sex, right? You know, a lot of it is hypersexualized, yes, and a lot of it is stigmatized as well. Like, oh, you know, these IG models, they're always out doing this, that, and the third, and it's always in guys' face. It's always in guys' face. So it does, because men are visual creatures. Like, you start getting used to seeing a certain aesthetic of what a woman should look like. So when you're out in the streets or on these social media dating apps, you're looking for that certain aesthetic, and when they don't meet that certain aesthetic,
I love this conversation.
It lowers it discourages the average guy, right? It discourages the average
someone
guy.
that's not in touch with their reality.
Correct.
Absolutely,
Correct. And I think that's why pornography for a long time detached me from reality. I used to, and I shared this in multiple episodes on the podcast. So I used to be addicted to porn, like bad porn addiction. I had a rampant porn addiction, to the point where at the time I almost lost my job because of my porn addiction. So that it's embarrassing to even say that, but nonetheless, I had a porn addiction, and what it was doing to me, neurologically wise, it was detaching me from reality.
Yeah.
So it was desensitizing me. And so I would look at a woman on Facebook, IG, and all these social media platforms as prey, or as an object for me to pleasure myself with, and stuff like that. And so when I would engage with a female, all I can think of is, how am I going to get her in bed? How can I do the things that I saw in the scenes that I saw on my phone a couple hours ago? And so it was definitely desensitizing me.
Yeah.
And because it didn't meet my expectations, and it devalued me, and it put less value on the person that I was, interacting with, it put me in a really dark place, and it breeded depression. Yeah. So I wasn't medically diagnosed depressed, but I felt it, man. And if I did see professional help, they were more than likely might have diagnosed me with some type of depression, right? So I was self-medicating. I was doing pills. I was drinking heavily out in the party scene, as you probably may know, because you and I share a lot of mutual friends. And I was heavy in that scene because I was just trying to numb my pain, numb everything that I couldn't fill, and there was that void that it was not filled with the things that I was getting myself into. So that led me to living a promiscuous life. That lifestyle is pretty treacherous, long term for sure. Short term, yes, it may sound like fun. You're partying, you're living a promiscuous life. This is a lifestyle that sin won't be sin if it wasn't fun. Right. Like, we're just going to call it what it is, right? Keeping it 100 with everybody. Like, if you don't consider sin fun, then you're doing it wrong. You're sinning wrong, guys. But then I had this encounter with the Lord, and slowly but surely I was changing, and He delivered me from my porn addiction, and He was doing some things in me and through me that I had to go through to become this man that I am today, and I'm still evolving. Like, right. I still leave room for improvement. I still leave room for growth. I think it's so important for people to not put a glass ceiling in their spiritual walk. Like, you can still learn.
Always, till the day we die.
Till the day we die, right?
It's a journey.
So it is difficult for young people to navigate through the dating world because of this OnlyFans era, this hypersexualized era. People are transgender and living promiscuous, and I like boys one day and maybe I may like girls the next. It gets pretty treacherous, right? Yeah. Especially for those who call themselves Christian and trying to live a Christian righteous life to the best of their ability. We're all flawed here. We're all sinners. We all fall short.
But in comparison, there are a lot but in comparison, right? So it's like, that's the thing. Like,
Yeah.
I think, so I started my journey with God this year because I felt like through all the growth that I've done personally, right, through personal development, my one thing that hadn't grown was my faith that, not that no matter what, everything was going to be okay, because I've kind of always figured it out. So I knew that, like, I'm gifted in that way, right? Like, I'll figure something out. I'm a hustler. I'm a go-getter.
Yeah.
But my faith in that God was working for me, not against me, right? Because I have sinned in enjoyment, like many, up until last weekend, you know, like, I'm not pretending to be by any means as aligned as I really should be, right? Like, as what they would consider it to be under the value or to be considered a Christian. But I think it's, like, very important to understand that, like, when we compare, right, what should be righteous, what is right versus what's really going on, I feel like we get stuck in this place of, it's not our place.
Right.
That's God's place to judge.
Yeah.
Like, it's our place to live from the best place that we can live individually for whatever that means to you in your relationship with God. Because it's unique, it's independent.
Yeah.
And I think, like, if you're aligned with it, if you're like a Christian and you're not drinking and you're waiting to have sex until you're married and all that, like, I love that. Like, I'm all like, if that brings you joy and that fulfills you and that's your relationship that you want to have with God, then by all means, that might not be the one that I want to have, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think yours is any better or mine is any better. I think it's just, like, accepting that we are humans and God is the only one here to really judge us.
Right. And I think the relationship is the key word there. My personal relationship with God is going to look different than your relationship with God, than Chris's relationship with God. Because here's the neat thing about God, you guys. God is going to meet you to the capacity that you know who God is to be. Yeah. So he knows me and he knows my heart. He knows your needs. And my needs, right? So he knows the capacity that I know him. So he's going to meet me there. Right? You're not a theologian. You're not a Bible scholar. Okay. So God's not going to meet you there.
Agreed.
He's going to meet you where you are, right? But he loves Lala so much that he's not going to leave you there.
100%. So
as long as you open your heart to him, he will have a work in you. You know, the Bible says that, you know, it articulates that the Bible articulates that God is a gentleman. He's not going to barge through the doors of your heart, right? He's going to knock. And you're going to either accept him or not accept him, right? And yes, we are all sinners. The Bible clearly is a friendly reminder. You know, those commandments, we can't uphold that. No. You know, because the Bible says that even the lust after a woman, you're committed adultery.
Or no jealousy. Or, like, that's not realistic.
That's not realistic. So because God is so grand and he has such an abundant love for us, actually a boundless love for us and limitless grace for us, that we can have faith that God forgave us and washed us clean of our sin. But then that's where conviction comes in. Like, if I'm for example, if I call myself a Christian and I am saved and I'm a born again Christian, right? And I'm talking it but not living it, then I would beg to differ that.
Yeah.
Because that means that you haven't really accepted lordship, Jesus to be Lord over your life. Because if you're saying one thing, but then you're at the strip club doing coke off the girl's back, then I would push back and say, you're really not saved yet, my brother.
Yeah.
Like, you're just saying these pretty words to possibly check Christian off the checkbox, but you're not living that lifestyle. It's like fitness and dieting, right? If you say, I'm all about fitness, but you're not losing weight and you're still a fat cow, then people are going to push back and say, are you living that lifestyle? You know what I'm saying? Because there's a difference between a hiccup when you mess up in life, because you're imperfect and you're going to sin and you're going to do all these things. But then there's a lifestyle, right? When I'm dieting and I'm 160 days in and my dieting's been pretty consistent, pretty solid, I'm losing the weight, and then I have a cake, some ice cream, and I throw in some burgers that day, that's a hiccup. It's not a lifestyle because I'm not doing it every day. You know what I'm saying? But if you're willfully sinning every day, then I would push back and say, my brother, you're not. I would push back and say you're not saved.
Yeah.
You know, you're not living that lifestyle. Just like I would push back, it's like, bro, you're not into fitness. You know, you're eating ice cream every day, but you're yapping your mouth that you're all about fitness and you're in the gym, but the results are not there. The only difference is that we get to see it on you when it comes to fitness, when it comes to spirituality. We don't get to see it on you, but we do get to see it within you, how you live your lifestyle.
But I think that's also compartmentalizing the definitions of what those things represent, right? Because there are and this is just basing off the example you used. I know that that's not exactly what you meant, but like there are very fit people that eat ice cream every day.
Right.
Or people that do macros, and so their macros allow them to have all those cheat meals and stuff like that. I think that also certain people that are working on their journey with God, it's like, where has God pulled them out of, right? Like maybe they're still doing coke off the girl's back, but they're no longer watching pornography. Yeah. Or they're no longer touching small children. Like it's an ever, so it's like results, yes, results provide an outcome, but it's like, where's the finish line? That's not definitive. And I think we as a culture, we like the fine lines. Like we like to know, like, no, this is black and this is white.
But that's where repentance comes in. And we spoke about repentance and forgiveness and the difference between the two. So when it comes to forgiveness, yes, you come before the Lord and you ask for forgiveness. And Catholics will call it confessions, whatever the case may be. But us as Christian, we do ask for forgiveness. Father, please forgive me for my sins. If I fell short, I ask for your forgiveness. Thank you for your grace. Thank you for your mercy. Thank you for your love. And that's a prayer, right?
Right.
However, repentance is a little different because yes, that person that's dealing with cocaine and a coke habit and a stripper habit, and he's in these environments, and God's trying to pull him out of there. But if you continue to go back in the mud pit, then God can only help you so much. He's going to allow things to happen until you decide to come out of the mud pit.
Yeah, I think we could be saved at any time.
Correct.
That we're ready
because
to be
the
saved.
Great thing about God is that our sin will never offend him.
No.
It will never offend him. But when it comes to repentance, it's like, okay, I found myself in this lifestyle that's unrighteous and it's just not godly in God's eyes. It's not God honoring in his eyes. I have to repent from this lifestyle. So when you're entering into repentance, it's not you just asking for forgiveness. It's you literally taking the initiative to say, God, I am sorry, and I'm walking away from this
or
life.
I'm trying to walk away.
I'm walking away from this lifestyle.
Yeah.
And when you repent, you're literally walking away from that lifestyle. I had to repent because I had to walk away from a lifestyle of promiscuity.
Yeah.
I had to walk away from pornography and say no to that because it was destroying me spiritually. So when I was asking for forgiveness, but then I'll try. But when you try to tame that beast, you're gonna fail every time. And I'm speaking through experience. Like you fail every time. Why? Because there's no accountability. No one's gonna hold you accountable. You're never gonna hold yourself accountable when you're struggling with an addiction. You know, it's just like telling the crack addict to stop smoking crack and you're not giving them the resources to get there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I had to go and seek help and surround myself with godly men, get into men's groups, and really be willing to be held accountable.
Get that support. I think community and support.
Community and support. And I preach this all the time. And community and support is just so important.
Especially when you're struggling through a moment in your life, it's so important to find those people that you envision yourself in a higher spirit like they are, so that you can get inspired, motivate yourself, and hold yourself accountable for where you want to get to in life.
You just literally described discipleship.
Yeah.
You know, being discipled is what it is. Like if, for example, I came out of that storm, I came out of that season of my life a changed man, right? So now God gave me an opportunity to help others who may be struggling with some type of addiction or some type of lifestyle that they're trying to walk away from. So God will use me for me to disciple that person and say, hey man, I know the struggle. I know how it's like out there to try to date and try to do it the right way, the godly way. Try to stay as pure as you can. But, you know, we're flesh.
Yeah.
You know, we get
horny. I'm here to support you and give you a call if it's hard.
I get that you get horny.
Yeah.
I get it, bro. Like you know what I'm saying?
It's part of life.
It's part of life, bro. Like, I know you got needs. I know that you see a shorty and shorty's paying attention to you and all you're thinking is, man.
Especially you guys. That's all you guys think about.
Yeah, we think about, we think about
women,
like,
we think a little deeper. We're thinking like he has no cologne on.
I know, right?
I wonder if he has a 401k.
Yeah.
Like, what does he have paid holidays? I mean, that's at least what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
We're going past your handsomeness and
going
to the
because with me it's like you got to be with me. Now this is just me. I'm not speaking for all men or all Christian men, but for me, you got to be more than a pretty face. Because if you don't have anything else to offer, then it's congratulations to your face.
Yeah. It's like you know what
congratulations to your face.
It's like a sancocho, pero el caldo no sabe rico.
Right.
Like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
It's no substance, and
There
it's
isn't.
like there's so much. This is momentous, right? Because every day we're evolving, like we're changing, we're getting older.
And beauty is fleeting.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
And it's only an accident away from not existing.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's what that can attract initially, right? Obviously, we're human beings, we're flesh.
Right.
But I think it's more important to really understand, like, what am I looking for as a human?
Yeah.
From another human to help empower me to be the best version of myself. See, but a lot of people are looking for someone to make them better.
Yeah.
Not to contribute to who they want to be and to their growth, but to help me grow. Help me get better.
My therapist used to tell me, because we used to talk about relationships all the time, and it was like, he hit it right on the head. He's like, the best way to describe it is either your person is going to be a liability or an asset. Mm-hmm. And if that person becomes a liability, and it's a liability, and you identify the fact that this person in your life is not for you because it's become a liability in your life, then that person is not for you.
Right.
If that person is an asset, however, and it's adding value to what you already bring to the table, then you can work from there.
Yeah.
It's not going to be perfect because there's no such thing as a perfect relationship, a perfect marriage, a perfect anything. But there's that partnership where you're adding value to one another. Mm-hmm. And if you're chasing the Lord, that's even better, right? Because that's a non-negotiable for me. Yeah. If you don't believe in God, I'm sorry. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you don't identify as a Christian, to me, mm-hmm. I can only speak for me. That's a non-negotiable for me. Like, if you're not Christian, you don't believe that Jesus rose from the dead, you don't believe in the resurrection, I'm sorry. It's just not for me. Why am I going to spin my wheels? Because it's not my job to convert people.
No. That's
Jesus's job.
And you should have very defined views of what you want for your life, because you're the creator of your path. Mm-hmm. So if, like, I know that in my life these certain areas are important, right, then I'm the responsible person to finding someone that is aligned with what I want. So you have to have those boundaries. You have to have those requirements. I think it's super important.
And I think that has to be communicated too.
Absolutely, at the beginning, off the bat. Like,
so if you guys are listening, I know that my camera, I had some technical difficulties, aka Javi for getting the battery. But if you guys are listening on Spotify and Apple, like, have those non-negotiables. Like Lala said, also say that up front, like in the front end. Don't wait till things start getting serious, and all of a sudden you start talking about ideologies and faith and all this,
No,
and then you
just
find
talk
yourself
about it.
not compatible with that.
That's like the first conversation we need to have is like, what's your opinion of God? What are your finances like? What are your life goals? How do you see yourself retiring? What's your ideology behind children if that's a place that you want to be in your relationship?
I feel like a lot of the 20-year-olds and even in their late 20s, they don't want to have those conversations for some reason. I don't know why.
Because they're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And because you like someone, right? And you think, oh God, they're hot.
Yeah.
Like, because I've been there.
Yeah.
This man is really like just bright, like really spicing it up for me, right? But I know he's not the person for me. And if I bring up all these red flags in conversations,
right,
I know he's going to have to go his separate way. And at that moment, your mindset, see, the thing is like 20-year-olds are still super young. Like they're just learning. I think we have this, we use age to reference where we should be in life.
Right, yeah.
Like, you're 40. You should already have this, and this, and that. But everyone's learning journey.
That's
everyone's
ageism,
life,
by the way.
Yeah.
I just learned that the other day that there's a thing called ageism. But anyway, I'm sorry.
But you know what I mean? Like it's this expectation or box that we put in life. Like by 30, I want to be this.
Yep.
And it's like you really just don't know.
You don't.
You really don't. You're learning. You're figuring out. I was in a relationship for all my 20s. And at that time, that served me. But then I turned 30 and it was like something in me clicked differently. And I started to ask myself uncomfortable conversations because I didn't want to ruin something that was good. That, within its ups and downs, it was working, right? Quote unquote.
Right.
Here I have a family. Like, do I really want to do that? But it's like deep down, the alignment has to be there. And when I started to mature, to work on my own personal development, to explore myself as an individual, like, what do I want? Like, what do I like? Because I don't know right now. Like, and when that conversation started to come about, it was like, we're not aligned. Yeah. And it was like, now it's doomsday because now you have to make a decision that affects so many people. So I think that's what happens at 20. We think like, people at 20 are building businesses, getting married. I mean, I had a child at 20. Yeah. Like, I think about how crazy, like, I was raising a human being. Like, God gave me a human at age of 20 and said, you can do it. Yeah. I didn't know what I was doing. Like, I was doing the best that I could within my circumstance. So I think it's understanding that, like, damn, at 22, you really don't know. At 25, you really don't know. At 28, you're still understanding what you like. Because when you hit 30, you're going to feel differently. And when you hit 35, you're going to hit differently. And my boyfriend right now is 40. Yeah. And he's like, what I wanted in my 30s is completely different than what I want in my 40s.
And I think it's healthy, though. I think embracing that is healthy. It's like, I always tell myself, because I gotta hype myself up and I gotta psych myself up and encourage myself, because my love language is words of affirmation. That's my love language. And so I like words. So when people encourage me, that makes me feel good, naturally. So like I always tell myself, like, man, like, embrace the journey. Yeah. Don't focus so much on the end game. Just embrace your journey, because that's the fun part. The fun part is scraping your knees, falling a couple of times, trying to get it right. Because there's growth in that. Yeah, absolutely. And I think evolution's a dope thing, bro.
Yeah, it's so cool that you're not the same person that you were.
Like I'm knocking at the door of 40, I'm there, I'm almost there. And like I think it's super dope that like 30-year-olds are evolving and they're embracing the fact that they can evolve, because there's some, like, I know some stubborn ass people that refuse to evolve because they are set in their ways, and that's how mom and dad taught them. That's just the way it is because of culture, what we talked about earlier, and they're just stuck. And
because personal development is a responsibility.
Yeah.
It doesn't come with age.
Right.
It doesn't come with experiences, because so many people repeat experiences and don't ever learn from them. Right. Personal development is a self-love action that you have to take.
And that's
on a
awesome
daily
that
basis.
you use love, because I always tell people love, and people will debate this, and I'm open for it. But because I know what God did on the cross, and that's an embodiment of love, because God is love, right? Love is not.
Say it a little bit louder for the people in the back.
God is love, right?
Yes,
God is love. But I would debate this all the time, and I embrace the debate because some people just don't know, and that's okay. I'm not trying to dunk on people because they don't know what love really is, or what it looks like, and what it is. But to me, because of Jesus, I know that love is a choice and not an emotion.
Yep.
And that's where it ends. But people, because they don't have a relationship with God, they may have the belief that there is a God, or there's a universe, and they believe in the universe, and the universe gives me this because I give back to the universe, so the universe is going to reward me with this. And that's cool ideology. That's cool, but that's not for me, right? Also, that the ideology of, oh, love is an emotion.
No.
You know, it's not an emotion, because emotions, again, it's fickle. You can't be happy forever, just like you're never going to be sad forever. You ever heard of the term, this storm shall pass too? Yeah. The storms that we go through.
Or nothing lasts forever.
Nothing lasts forever, right? But love is a choice, because Jesus made a choice to abide by his Father and say, I'm going to hang on this cross, because just like John 3:16, but even after that verse, in verse 17 and 18, it'll embody what love really is, and it's a choice. Yeah. Jesus loved the world so much that he gave his only begotten Son to the world, right? To wash ourselves from the sins that we were born with, right? So that's a choice. So for you to wake up to your partner and give them a cup of coffee, you're doing it out of love, of course, but you're choosing. That's a choice that you're making.
Well, people confuse lust with love.
Right.
And it feels very much so like the same. Actually, lust feels even deeper. Like when you're in the lusting moment with your partner, when you're first meeting and all those emotions.
But it's short-lived.
Yes. and it feels so deep, right? But it's like when all that is gone, what's left, to me, that is what I've realized is like, how does this person make me feel when we're not out in the street, when we're not distracted, when there's not people around? Like, I can't lie to myself. I can pretend to have an amazing relationship for the world, but I gotta live with this person. Yeah. So it's like, how do I feel around this person when we're alone? Do I feel motivated to be a better person? Do I feel inspired? Do I feel respected? Do I feel admired, loved, honored? Like all those things that are valuable and important to me as a human being. That's what I receive as love, because I've been in lust, and it's awesome. And
there's going to be days where you're not going to feel loved by your partner because your partner had a bad day, and you got to meet your partner
or
there.
you don't love him that day that much. You're just like, go somewhere.
But again, it comes to a choice, right, guys? Like it's a choice that you're making. You chose to be with that person, especially if you're with that person multiple years, you're in the long haul of things, you're married to this person, whatever the case may be, but you're choosing to do things for this person because you're choosing to love on them. It's
and as long as you're in a healthy relationship, right? Yeah, because that's another thing. People use love as an excuse to allow toxic relationships to exist in their lives.
To allow abuse.
Like absolutely. Yeah, where they think like, oh, I love him, so I have to accept this from him, and it's like,
no, you don't.
You can't love him because you don't love yourself. Right. Because when you love yourself, you set a standard for how people love you.
Right, absolutely.
And it's like, look, I love my man, okay? I pray to God, I really do, that we make it till the day God calls us. Yeah. But the day that he is not aligned with who I want to be, what my expectation is of a partner, and not in a specific box of like he has to be a millionaire or he has to be 220 pounds, 6'6", and with abs. Yeah. But I mean, like as a human being, the day he's not bringing value to my life, like you gotta go too. Yeah, absolutely. Because I'm not gonna spend my life giving away my energy and my love to someone that doesn't value that. And someone that's doing wrong things to you doesn't value you, And
that comes with work too. I think loving people is work. You know,
100%.
And some people would say
children will teach
some
you
people would say, oh, if it's going to be work, then it's not worth having.
Then they don't have kids.
Then oh, not only that, but then you got you have the concept of love and relationship a little misconstrued, because it is work.
It is,
and it shouldn't be work like a chore, but it's work as far as relationship building,
commitment.
Like you have to be in the business of relationship building. If you're not in the business of relationship building and staying committed to something that you believe is something worth having, and
nurturing it is super important.
So something that's worth having comes with work. You have to work, you have to nurture it, you have to there's going to be bad days where that person's going to be a little difficult to love on, but again, it comes with work. If you're not working for it, then you're going to be easily swayed, and you're going to be easily disconnected, and then it'll put you in a place where you guys are not going to be aligned, and it's going to cause division, it's going to cause tension, and it's going to cause the relationship to be divisive. And I think that a lot of us who've been in relationships can look back and say, hey, that relationship didn't work because one of the parties did not put in the work, or one of the parties decided not to put in the work, and they decided to part ways and walk away. And that's something that you have to live with. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes rejection is God's redirection.
And I think also relationships are seasonal.
It could be. I think absolutely.
They ever so are. Even like relationships with everyone in your life, your friends, your children, they're seasonal. Yeah. My relationship with my son when he was a young child is not the same as my relationship now that he's a teenager. Right. So they evolve. They go through seasons. Like there's seasons where we're super connected, but then there's seasons where we're very busy, we're working, life is hectic, and maybe we're not there. Right. But it's understanding that season shall pass.
But you're not going to quit on being a mom.
Right, exactly.
And a lot of us in relationships, we quit being a partner because you're feeling a kind of way. Again, it's not
Instead
a feeling.
Instead of communicating too.
Communicate, work for it. Communication is key. Dialogue is key. Empathy is key. Exercising all these things, like exercising empathy, meeting your partner where they're at. Sacrifice. All these things. And all those things is essentially works, right? It's like what the Bible says, faith without works is what? Dead, right? Faith without works is dead. It's dead faith. So if you want a dead relationship, then go ahead, keep on doing no works, and you'll find yourselves in a lot of dead relationships.
And if that's the case, then you're in a place in your life where you're in a selfish state of mind. Stay single. Date around
and figure it out. Figure it out, because I do believe that singleness is not a toxic thing.
No.
There's nothing wrong with you being single. Right now I'm single, and I'm not trying to jump on the next relationship. Right now, I'm enjoying my single life, but in the sense of like, I'm building me again. I'm picking up the pieces. I'm building myself. I'm doing this podcast with more intentionality and more commitment. Not that I wasn't when I was in a relationship, but now I get to focus more on certain things. Get to focus on myself physically, spiritually. My relationship with the Lord is much stronger now, and so. There is good out of singleness, right?
Absolutely.
Out of your single life.
Because it's uncomfortable.
Yes.
So it requires you're not distracted by someone else there.
Yeah.
So you have to take self-awareness.
And singleness for me is seasonal too.
Yeah,
I'm in a season right now. I got to embrace that season of singleness and just work on me. And I think when you start loving yourself, things start to trickle down in your life. You know what I'm saying? So it'll trickle down into my relationships with like the men's group that me and Chris go to, and like you build these like real strong like brotherhood type relationships that I thought I would never be in had I still been in a relationship. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So there is a blessing in that. And so I tell this to anyone that's listening, like embrace the seasons that you're in. There's a season and a reason as to why you're in that place in your life, and communicate that with God. I mean, I always tell people who identify as Christian and identify as believers, like prayer should be your first line of defense and not your last resort.
Well, prayer is also intention.
It is.
Like if you're living life, when you're praying for things, you are directly asking God, what is it that you want?
Right.
So that God can help you figure out a way to get to those things. Because He's not going to hand them to you.
Right.
You have to do the work
He's
that
more
it takes.
of a guide,
yes.
if you will. Yeah.
He's more like, I will teach you how to fish. I will not bring the fish to you kind of guy. Right? Like that's at least my
absolutely.
my understanding of him.
Yeah, that's just the way he operates, for sure.
But when you pray, you're setting an intention for your life. When you have gratitude, right? Like I'm huge on waking up in the morning and setting the right intention for the day. Like you need that. If you just wake up and you let the world take you, you're not going to have a great day.
No.
But if you wake up and you say, today is a great day.
Yeah.
Today I'm going to pursue all the things that I wanted to do.
And show gratitude is so important.
Thank God I'm awake.
Yeah, when I'm praying in the morning, I pray from a posture of gratitude.
Yeah.
Like I always posture my heart with gratitude, because I got to thank God for waking me up, because someone today did not wake up.
Amen.
You know what I mean?
And He woke up my kid and my man, and that's good enough for me.
Exactly.
I'm like, you did extra for me.
Yeah.
You know?
So I just thank God for keeping me upright, for giving me an able body, for just providing a roof over my head and clothes on my back. And we take that for granted because we live in such a consumeristic nation like America. We walk with entitlement. We walk with these first world problems like, oh my gosh, I cracked my iPhone screen. What am I going to do now? And meanwhile, in Haiti, some kid is eating mud pies.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like, wow.
It's perspective, man.
It's definitely perspective. So,
and self-awareness. It's so important.
Absolutely.
That's the number one thing I teach my son above everything is kindness.
Mm-hmm.
But kindness has to come from a place of self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
It's not kindness, yes, I say yes to everything. Yes, I allow everything to overtake into my life. No. It's understanding the difference of where is that coming from. Mm-hmm. Are you doing it to please others? Or are you doing it from a place of serving and you understand that this is what's best for you as well?
Yeah.
Right? So I always tell my son, I'm like, you know, you gotta really become self-aware.
Yeah.
Like, how are you feeling? Why do you feel like that?
And God blesses the servant heart.
Yeah.
And the servant leaders, and I do wholeheartedly believe that He just has a way to bless those individuals, that the ones that submit and serve, not to get a handout, but just serve out of worship, serve out of love. Man, there's God's favor will be over you.
He fills your heart
too,
absolutely. Right? Because you
absolutely.
feel like so good when
Oh
you
my
do something
gosh.
nice.
Whenever I did anything ministry-wise or serving-wise, like it was a blessing for me. It just filled me. It made me feel good. It got me more closer to God in a sense.
It re-energizes you.
Yeah, it just fills your cup.
It does.
You know, and I that's also a prayer of mine too. Like I try to be intentional with that specific prayer. Like God, just don't fill my cup to the brim, like overflow that bad boy. You know, just overflow my cup. And I always want to be in that overflow. And I encourage anybody that's listening that, hey, you know, if your cup's half empty or you're running low, get connected with the local church. I always encourage that, but get connected with a solid group of people. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Church can be anywhere. It doesn't have to be in a church building. This is church. You know, we this dialogue here. We're talking Jesus. We're talking life. We're talking spirituality. This is church because it encourages me, and I know that it's encouraging you. And I pray that you walk out of here a little different with a new perspective, and your cup is filled. Yeah. And for those that are listening, I hope that you guys, you know, had your perspective shift a little bit. And if you were feeling defeated and just running on empty, I hope that this filled you up a little bit and encourages you to make some changes, because it's okay to make changes. You don't have to be stuck where you're at because you come from a family of XYZ. You know what I'm saying? You never allow your past, your culture, your upbringing define you. You know, the only person that can define you is Christ, in my belief. And if you don't know Christ, holla at me.
Get to know him.
Get to know me. If you don't know how to, you can always reach me.
It's free therapy.
Yeah.
It's free wisdom.
Yes.
It's free love. It's free forgiveness.
Yes.
I mean, it doesn't get better than that.
It does not.
It
And
really
this was
doesn't.
definitely therapeutic for me. This was
For
great.
me too. Thank you. For
I
having me.
love this conversation. We had about an hour and some change. I think we could end it here. I hope that this is not your last time with us. I hope that you come back soon, and we'll talk about other things. But I thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for your vulnerability. Like I said, your vulnerability from me personally is a gift that you can give another human being. I think it's such a powerful thing because it brings transparency too. Your vulnerability can also open you up a little bit where you're transparent, and I think through transparency there's transformation, and that's key and very important.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And guys, as you already know, I'm a weekly show that airs weekly, once a week. I'm going to leave the links in the description below, depending on what platform you are listening to. Thank you again, guys, for just reaching out for your prayer requests. I'm definitely praying for all of you guys that sent me prayer requests. Those do not go unnoticed. But yes, till the next time, we love you. Be the light, encourage someone, share this video. Well, it's not really a video, but share this link with someone that may walk out with an encouraging word. But we love you, and we'll see you next week. Peace.